Imagine you're a detective in a crowded city. You've just received information that a bomb has been placed somewhere in the city. There's only one person who knows where the bomb is located and how to deactivate it. The only way to get the information out of the suspect is to torture them. Is it morally permissible to torture the person? What would you do?
There are 4 different ideologies to solve this ethical thought experiment. The first one is known as Kantianism. This is the ethical ideology that was proposed by the 16th century philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kant had a system of working out whether an action is morally feasible known as the categorical imperative. The categorical imperative has 3 prongs to evaluate an action. The prongs propose a universal law of what is right and what is wrong. The first prong is known as the formula of universality. In this, Kant states, act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. This means that if a society cannot exist where everybody does this at all times, then it is not moral for you to do it. The second prong is called the formula of humanity. Kant states, act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never merely as a means to an end, but always at the same time as an end. This is saying that any action in which you use a person as a way to get something, not caring about the repercussions to them, is immoral. This prong argues that we should all act in the best interest of society. Any act that leads to an unstable or undesirable state of affairs would violate this action. In this situation, Kant would not torture the suspect. This situation stands with the first prong because we can logically picture a society in which the government can torture someone any time that they refuse to give information, for example, communist Russia. But it definitely violates the second and third prongs. When you torture someone for information, you are using that person as a means to an end. And an ideal society would not torture people because torture is an undesirable state of affairs.
Another view on this issue originates from the ancient Greeks. Aristotle popularized virtue ethics to figure out what makes a morally sound person. Virtue ethics has been around for a while before Aristotle, but he brought his own take to it that made the values more robust. Aristotle argued that one person shouldn't have an excess or lack of any one quality, and one had to find the golden mean between the two. With the proposed situation, a virtue ethicist could go either way. One could argue that torturing someone doesn't explicitly violate any of the virtues put forward by Aristotle, making the act justified. Courage stands because someone can have courage to participate in the act of torturing someone. Generosity stands because it has more to do with charity, not kindness. Honesty stands because you aren't being dishonest in the act of torture. And composure and self-control stand because you have to show both of these qualities to keep yourself from going too far in torture. Another could argue, though, that virtue ethics could be cultivated in the long run and not just applied to certain situations. This could justify the reasoning for someone not torturing another even though they're a virtue ethicist. So, someone following virtue ethics could go either way, but someone from ancient Greece probably wouldn't have an issue with torturing someone, because glory.
Another solution could be utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is a very well-known philosophical principle created originally by the 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham. It was generally known as a response to Kantian ethics, and the idea that means justify the ends. Bentham argued that the action that caused the greatest happiness and least amount of pain for the greatest number of people was the optimal choice. So, in this current situation, under utilitarianism, we would torture the suspect, as the action of torture of one person is outweighed by the lives that would be saved by torturing the suspect. The ends of saving hundreds of lives outweighs the means of having to torture a suspect.
Egoism is the idea that an action that benefits the doer is considered ethical. In egoism, selfish actions are not immoral because in order to do something that is beneficial for someone else, you have to be in a good condition, therefore justifying selfish things. This can be summed up when a flight attendant says, secure your own oxygen mask before checking if the passenger next to you has it secured. An egoist might not torture the suspect because the mental anguish of torturing someone would be detrimental to their own mental health. But if the egoist was in immediate danger from the bomb, they might torture the suspect to save their own life.
The solution that is the best is a combination of two ideals we have presented earlier. The solution is going to take things from both utilitarianism and egoism. Those ideals are on opposite ends of the spectrum, which is why it is the best. The solution to this thought experiment is in the middle in between the two. It states that you must torture the suspect in order to save the city, not because it will save the most lives, but because if you were a civilian, you would want the suspect tortured in order to save your own life. You torture not to purely save the lives of others, but because you would want someone tortured in order to save your own life. If you were in the position of the suspect who is believed to have the information, you would still follow the same ideal. You would want to live in a society where other suspects would be tortured in order to save your own life. If the suspect approaches the situation as an unbiased person, they would come to the same conclusion. Overall, your motive is watching out for your own self-interest, aka egoism, but the end result is the saving of lives, aka utilitarianism. Our solution takes pieces from both ideals and creates the one true solution. The reason why pure utilitarianism doesn't work is because, as egoism states, you must care about yourself before you can care about others. Pure utilitarianism is unattainable. No real person is only ever going to prioritize the lives of others over their own at all times. The reason we can't use pure egoism is the reverse of why we can't use pure utilitarianism. No person can truly be entirely self-serving. Every person has something outside of themselves that they care about on some level. No one can truly value their psyche over the lives of others at all times.
Now, in this situation, we're assuming that torture is a 100% sure way to get the information from the suspect. FBI and CIA statistics show that torture, or enhanced interrogation techniques, don't actually provide accurate information when they're used against an individual. So the question is now, if you don't know with 100% certainty that the person knows what we think they know, does that make the torture permissible? And if it is okay, what percentage of certainty would make it not okay? Based on this new information, all of the philosophical ideologies would disagree with torturing the individual, including the proposed solution. If it wasn't known with 100% certainty that the torture would provide us with the information needed, then some would choose not to torture the individual because the ends could potentially not justify the means. An innocent person could be put through this negative experience for no reason, making the torture an unjustified act. An egoist and utilitarian wouldn't torture the suspect in the situation because they could be putting themselves in an unpleasant situation without guarantee of a reward. This would not be in the person's self-interest, and it could potentially not provide any benefit for the greater good. The suspect wouldn't want the torture to happen because they wouldn't want to live in a society where innocent people could be tortured for potential information. The question of the morality of torture is something that will be debated for years to come, but if we take a utilitarian, egoist point of view on the issue, we can find the solution that will end up satisfying everyone involved.